I'm really excited that we can all get together to recap the recent From Barriers to Belief initiative that we just completed, where we were fortunate enough to embark upon a month-long journey that was shared across our social channels, highlighting the reality that one, the same systems holding sports inequity in place in a community like Oakland, where I'm at, are also the same systems holding youth sports inequity in places or communities like Southeast San Diego, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. And unfortunately, in Black and Brown communities across this country. We had a tremendous time. I had a tremendous time highlighting some of the great work being done in our Black communities by some of the very same people on this panel. Now, as we wrap up the month, we have this wonderful opportunity to continue the conversation we were having individually, but as a group, right? With a couple of new friends joining us as well who are quite familiar with this very important issue. But before I get started, I want to introduce our amazing panel. From our Oakland task force, we have Sean Granberry, founder and CEO of Hip Hop TV. We have Jamoke Hinton, director of Bay Area Local Advocacy at the California Charter Schools Association. My people down in Southeast San Diego, we have Jeff Harper Harris, co-founder for Coaches for Racial Equality, and founder of Athletes and Coaches Against Bullying, and the head basketball coach at Lincoln High School. We also have Armand Harvey, founder and CEO of the Harvey Family Foundation, where they're doing tremendous work in the community in Southeast San Diego. And in Philadelphia, we have Valencia Coach V. Peterson, member of the Philadelphia Youth Sport Collaborative and founder and CEO of ODAP, Open Door Abuse Awareness and Prevention. And then we also have Eric Worley, director of Neighborhood-Based Programs, co-founder and program director of Philadelphia Youth Basketball, who's also a member of their collaborative. We have my friend Trennis Jones from PCA. He's the regional director for the state of Texas. My colleagues, also the co-chair of PCA's Sports Can Battle Racism platform. And then we also have Adrian Moore, lead consultant and trainer for the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport. Thank you all so much for being here. Now, to get us started, right, I've spoken to everyone on this panel about sports equity and what you're seeing in your individual communities. But to get started, Adrian, I want to come to you first. In your work at the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, you're at the forefront, you and your organization are at the forefront of a national sport equity movement. And I'd love to hear about what you are saying, right, at the national level as it relates to sport equity.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, everybody, for having me on. I'm honored to be here and excited to listen. So I am part of an organization called the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport. We have staff all over the country. I'm currently sitting out here in Seattle, but we have staff across the country who work and train in youth sport organizations across the country. One of the things, I think you're right that we get sort of a higher level view of some of the issues that are happening on the ground. And I think that one of the things that's clear is that there's a gap in national organizing when it comes to centering the voices of folks who are doing work on the ground. And one of the things that we're really trying to help push is this idea of local organizing, and specifically local organizing around sports equity, and sort of getting all of those folks together to start pushing for centering some of those voices at a local level. And then what we're doing is sort of taking those folks who are organizing locally, and we're organizing those folks nationally to try and really build a stronger national voice and a mechanism to, like I said, elevate and center the voices of folks who are doing direct service, coaches, programs, folks who are on the ground doing the work, into those national conversations that happen at a higher level with Aspen, for example, and others. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. That's one of the trends. That's one of the things I'm most excited about in terms of what I'm seeing emerging. And I think this idea of sort of of organizing both locally and then taking this sort of equity focused organizing approach to a national level to push on some of these systems is a key thing we're going to be focused on in the next couple of years.
Awesome. Now, I want to keep the conversation going right to and include the group here. So when we talk locally, I'll just throw it to the group. Like, what are you seeing locally in terms of the equity issues as it pertains to access for our young women and men?
I have to just give it up to Coach Jeff and Coach V, and being able to see your videos. I was almost in tears at the passion and I was yeah, that is that thing, right? That is about how do we build the character of our young people? How do we expose them to things that they haven't been exposed to before? And being relentless. So feeling y'all in that way, witnessing this in my own city was that it felt very stilted, right? I felt that there were some folks that were getting access, young men that were getting access, but then I didn't see the follow through around that, right? Coach Jeff, you talked about yeah, I got 10 kids going on scholarship, but they on academic scholarships, right? So it is that for me on the ground, there isn't that push and rigor around what's happening. And we got to talk more, we got to come together. We got to define these terms, equity. What does that really mean? And really lift and support who's out there doing the work. So I'm sure, I don't know all of Oakland. And so I know there's Coach V's and Coach Jeff's out here, but we got to lift them in certain kinds of ways. So that's definitely why I'm in this, circle square, just kind of how do I support and lean in and move in that way.
Coach V, you're doing great work out there, right? Tell us about a little bit, one, about your program, the group about your program, but also how you see the sports landscape locally.
First of all, thanks and hello to everybody on here doing great work, and thank you for the shout out. I appreciate that. Sports holds a lot of weight, no matter how no matter how you look at it, and the idea for us as ODAP, using that platform specifically for violence prevention, has really created this unique way of creating a community, right, that now can use that platform of sports to promote something that we all want anyhow, which is to end the violence, right, and to give them something better to focus on. But if I'm understanding your question, I just think that there's a lot going on in Philadelphia, to Eric's point, a lot about basketball. You heard him say that there are representatives like city councilman Isaiah Thomas, for instance, he's involved in basketball. They're doing things now here in Philly to get their people that are involved in the government to be actually involved in the sports, understanding this is our vehicle to reach more of our young people. This is huge. This is not something we can just let them do an after school program. No, we need to come together and make a real, a solid program, intentionally weaving things in it so that our kids can understand there's more to sports than just playing sports. You can get an academic scholarship. You can live outside of thinking that football or whatever is your only hope. But I think that the city in general here has slept on largely the power of sports and has used it sort of weakly, considering all the weight that's in there. You know what I'm saying? Like even during COVID, like I said before, if they had the realization of how much it was needed, they could have packed so much in there, to deal with some of the issues and headed and, get good in front of some of the issues we're having here in Philadelphia. That should have been the last thing off the plate. You feel me? Sports. It should have been the last thing off the.
It came first.
It should have been the last thing, Yeah.
No, and you said something that triggered something in me, right? And thank you for that. Coach Jeff, let me bring you in here. What's your motto?
Bigger than basketball.
Right. So as a coach, with the barriers, and I love that model, it's bigger than basketball. Like, so as a coach and a leader, like in Southeast San Diego, what is this surface for you? Like talk to us a little bit about like what's happening in Southeast, and like what's it, if you saw any similarities like in other communities, or is anything surfacing for you or triggering for you in this space?
No, I think it does. I mean, I watched them all, and the one piece I keep coming was it's our inner city. It's our young African American males and Hispanics that are taking losses, and in San Diego, I don't feel that we're the priority. Southeast, East San Diego, we got the Padres, they had the Chargers, but the years I've been here, none of those organizations, to me personally, has ever came and said, okay, let me put these resources in this community. You know what I'm saying? Even the colleges around Southeast San Diego. I've had some issues with schools not recruiting kids from Southeast San Diego because of whatever reason. And I got a buddy, you know what I'm saying? I'm from Ohio, so I got family in Ohio say the same thing. For some odd reason, our kids are more likely to do something out when they go to college, but not really understand that you got to give them a shot. You got to give them a chance. We're looked at, our kids are looked down. Where you from? I'll go to Lincoln, or I'll go to Morris. And the first thing you see people's faces like, oh, that's Southeast. Like, ooh. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing that community produced in football alone, Lincoln High School alone has produced Marcus Allen, Terrell Davis, you know what I'm saying? NFL legends, Norman Powell, Dominique McGuire on the basketball level, of same people that came out the same type of environment. And so it's kind of hard when you got to fight that battle where, I mean, like I said, we talk, I'm not a politician, so I don't play politics. I play lives, you know what I'm saying? My goal is to coach lives. I'm a life coach. I haven't won the big one. I ain't got 6,000 wins, and I don't think that is what I'm in it for. And I think that's what everybody that I watched on these videos and documentaries is about. That it ain't about what you do at the end about a trophy or a banner. It's about when a kid's successful. And it's a tough battle, you know what I'm saying? Because we dealing with violence a week ago. It was violence three in broad daylight. We lost 3 young people to gang violence in the middle of the day, and 2 of them were former Lincoln students. So, like I said, I don't think our city gives us enough push in the inner city. I mean, it's easy to say you're going to do something in election time, but I've been in it for 30 some odd years, and I still haven't seen it.
No, absolutely, and I think one of the common themes are around the systems, right, and how systems are. Like, we didn't create these systems, right? These systems were imposed upon us. And in any system or any institution is rife with inequity. So like how do we go about attacking that system and breaking that system down? We really want to come together around a shared vision and shared values. Let me get my guy Trennis in here. Trennis, you oversee, like Coach Jeff spoke, Coach V spoke, right? And from a coaching perspective, right? Like, what do you oversee like our joint work in the entire state of Texas, right? A lot's happening in Texas. Talk to us a little bit about the sport landscape in Texas, not only for our kids, but for our coaches.
Yeah, and good afternoon, good morning for some. Appreciate the opportunity to be with everybody, and I'm excited to be here. To answer your question, Rob, I think number one, in a place like Texas, a place that's dominated by athletics, oftentimes that people are not pouring in those resources into the kids and the communities that need it the most. And that's been something that I've seen a lot of, right? Like they love elevating that one kid that has been able to survive that situation and come out and be successful and star at the college level, but they're not necessarily focusing in on that kid that needs athletics to be able to graduate. And to enrich those types of programs to make sure that those kids have those opportunities. So, on the ground, at least for us, I think one of the things that I've recognized is that as we come in and try to have conversations around, having integrity and competing, with character and things of that sort, it's really hard to have those conversations if the kids are hungry. And so we need to make sure that we're centering what they need the most as opposed to what we think they need, and asking those questions first and making sure that they're fed, even physically fed, before we start you know, to pour into what are your grades like and all of those other things, those questions need to be had. But I think we've got to make sure that we're having those conversations holistically and not just in an isolated way. You know, what I would advance to the group is that we've got to demand more. When we're talking about making sure that we're asking for resources, yeah, it's important, but we need resources when we're talking about equity and things of that sort, you know, experience equity, not just equity around making sure that we've got the lights on at the facility, but how do we make sure that there's funding for those kids to go to a game, to go to a college campus and to take a tour, to do something that I think a lot of these other kids that are coming from means, you know, clearly have the opportunity to participate in, and that's part of their sports experience. But because oftentimes, you know, kids that are under the poverty line and primarily Black and brown communities aren't given that opportunity, and so athletics sometimes, you know, isn't they don't stay in it as well and as much as they want to, right? Because it starts, you know, life starts to infiltrate, and they need to get a job, or somebody, you know, and, you know, recruits them to do something else, and the program isn't as strong as it needs to be. So for us, what I see from a coaching perspective, but also from a programming perspective, we've got to demand more, you know, and ask for more and require more of the people that say that they love our communities and they want to share those resources or give those resources back to what we've made the investment. We're just asking for our money back.
You know, and that like it's all about community, right? Like, these are our communities. These are our young people. Like it comes down to, I couldn't agree more, right? Like, around coming together and demanding what we need in a very clear and concise way. Sean, what are your thoughts?
I will say in Oakland, we come to the realization that, you know, we are the solution, and it is the community is the solution because of the lack of resources. Like, our community centers here in Oakland really only have one full-time employee, the director of the center, and just a few part-time employees. So, I mean, they can't get much done. There's just no resources to get stuff done, to even have activities for the kids or even engage with them much because of the lack of resources. So what we're doing is asking community people to step up and fill those gaps and realizing we are a solution. Last week, we had a coaching training at Willie Keys Recreation Center, and we brought out men and women that want to be a part of the solution. We will volunteer at the centers to fill the gaps so we can even engage the kids more and actually, you know, create the change. I think we have to realize that, unfortunately, in many of these cities, our youth are not a priority. I mean, it's a hard reality to face. But so we have to become the solution. And that's why I really love the work Coaching Core is doing, because that training creates a situation where we can get involved in the community and fill all these gaps, you know. So it's a harsh reality to face, but, you know, in Oakland, we're closing schools, we're underfunding community centers, and it's really in the areas that need it compared to the more affluent areas where they're expanding. So I think we have to come to the realization that we are the solution and we have to figure it out. And we can't expect much from, unfortunately, the powers that be to solve these solutions.
No, absolutely. And like, a common thread that I'm hearing from you, Trennis, you talked about it, B, you talked about it, Sean, you just brought it up, Jeff, you touched on it a little bit, and I want to get others in here as well, right, is the impact of politics and money, right, in terms of its influence, in terms of the influence it holds on the system, the systems locally that impact sport equity. Talk to us about like how do you think politics, money impact access for kids?
It's real huge, especially here in San Diego. It's a very mayor-driven city here in San Diego. The mayor has, too much power. And again, just by a flick of a pen, he's able to make whatever change he deems fit for our city. And where we live in Southeast San Diego is, flies under the radar, as Coach Jeff says. And a lot of the money that is allocated to the resources that we need, such as parks and sport, sport programs and things like that, are just not allocated right, are put in places where he sees makes him look good, in the areas that already have resources but are used to flourish even more, which is the reason why me and my foundation are taking the forefront to make sure that those funds are allocated where they're supposed to be, for the resources, because sports is huge in our community. No, it's not everything. That's not the only route to go, but kids like us who grow up and we do get good grades, but are passed on scholarships, academic scholarships and things like that, we use sports as another way. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Politics, here in San Diego is, and I'm sure everywhere it's just very corrupt, man. And, and it sucks to see, because like Coach Jeff is saying, it's just nonstop. When you ask these kids that I mentor, it's just, they don't have anything to do. There's nothing to do. So it's nothing to get on Instagram or Facebook and have an argument, and that argument turns deadly. You see what I'm saying? When, again, if you give these kids things to do, then they're not on the internet. You know what I'm saying? They're not out doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. After school, they're at some sort of practice or some type of programming, just keeping their mind busy, and it just sucks, because these people, the politicians know that. You know what I'm saying? They know that, but they choose to ignore it.
Right,
and
right.
What I'm tired of.
No, I we're seeing that everywhere. Eric, are you back on? Can you hear now?
First of all, I'm glad to be in the presence of everybody doing such great work, serving young people, through various sports. But what we've been able to see in our city is kind of a collaboration of multiple sports kind of come together under a coalition. Philadelphia Youth Sports Collaborative is what it's called. And, once that got started, it really kind of been brought some attention from the political types in our city to youth sports, which was kind of an unknown, in our city. Of course, just like most entities, we have our rec centers, we have, different community organizations, facilitating and serving young people through sport.
Adrian, let me ask you this. I saw you put something in the chat around like Urban Dove and some of the great work they're doing with sports-based youth development, like as the core of their curriculum. And can you speak to that?
Yeah, I see a couple people nodding. Y'all probably know about them. They're awesome, but they know, they understand that the power sport can have can be applied and to the school day and to a curriculum, and they built, I think it's now several high schools, particularly for high school students who are off track to graduation, so they get referred. And sports-based youth development, so doing sport in an intentional way to sort of pull out all of these awesome things, is a core piece of their model during the day. To the point that was just made, like their coaches are key staff members as part of their school. And so just wanted to call it out to have it be on the radar. I think one of the things that I'll just say quickly is that a lot of the systems and a lot of the sort of harmful oppressive systems that push on our kids happen through sport also. Like, not all sport is great. And so one of the things that I think local organizing can be powerful to do is to say, all right, we're going to do this differently. We have some folks, like the folks here on this call, who are doing sport in a certain way, and we're gonna band together, and we're gonna bring the greater sport community into this community and start learning how to heal, not harm, through our local sports, to make sure that we're not perpetuating that harm through the system of sport, because we all know that not everybody's experience in sport is great, and that things like racism and misogyny and all those things are loud and present in many sport systems.
Absolutely, and not to pick on you, Trennis, but like my colleague Trennis here is the co-chair of the Sports Can Battle Racism training, right, and platform. Like, Tell us a little bit about that, Trent. It's what Adrian said just triggered that in me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously sports, we sometimes describe it as this special magical place, and it's not a guarantee to be that way, right? We got to be intentional with the atmospheres and the climates we create. And so what our Sports Can Battle Racism platform is intended to do is, number one, be able to provide curriculum, which is inclusive of workshops for the coaches and the kids currently, making sure that we're elevating and amplifying certain voices in the forms of roundtables and discussions like the one we're having right now. And then lastly, resources, right? Like we didn't create this problem. We won't fix it by ourselves. And there's other people doing amazing work in it. And I think that our platform should leave space for those great ideas to be shared. But a big part of our conversation is making sure that people are willing to be vulnerable. And one of the conversations we start with in our workshops is requiring that our trainers share why this is an important conversation for them personally. This isn't just some DEI training that you got to check a box so you can get back into your job, that type of stuff. This is like life and death. This is how proud I am as a Black man, and I don't take that to be light or funny, and most people don't either. And so let's make sure that as we're pouring into some of these coaches, specifically these coaches that maybe don't look like me, they need to be a little bit more honest and inquisitive and curious about what their kids are experiencing and how you can create a climate that allows them to be the best version of themselves. And that means seeing their race, that means seeing their background, that means calling that out and embracing and loving that part of it too, right? Like a lot of times, we get to this, we don't see race, and after Obama, we're past racial, whatever. We clearly know that that's not true. And so I think it's important for us to be intentional and pour into those kids and those coaches to make sure that they're prepared for what society is going to bring to their door. Because I think sports can be part of us improving this place if we do it the right way.
And amen, right? And that's why I'm so excited about this work, right? Like this systems change work, this grassroots community-based organizing, because we can bring people together, right? Like Trent is. Coach Jeff is the co-founder of a group in San Diego called Coaches for Racial Equality, right? You all don't know each other, right? You all should know each other. Like Coach Jeff, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Coaches for Racial Equality.
Yeah, it's interesting how it came about. Just a real quick, when we was in COVID, and we was our schools, like most schools, we were shut down, couldn't do anything. So we was having Zoom meetings with my kids. We had Zoom meetings twice a week, and just to make sure they, mentally, dealing with something new. They was at home, they wasn't at school, they wasn't in the gyms or the field. And one of our Zoom calls was right after the George Floyd situation, and we're talking, and one of my players, who's a senior now, said, hey, Coach Jeff, I'm working out, I'm doing push-ups, I'm running around my backyard, I'm getting stronger. And, and as a coach, you're like, all right, cool, because we didn't know when we were going to start back up, especially for basketball, right? We I'm saying, this is summer. This is when we're in the midst of the protests. I got kids out on the front line protesting. And San Diego's a little like, like I would tell you, San Diego's a little different when it comes to a lot of protesting and things like that. But what scared me when it was his next statement, he said, yeah, I'm getting stronger and physical. So when we play them white kids up in North County, I'm gonna get my get back from George Floyd. And he said it seriously, like no joking, no grins. And then it was just quiet. And then other kids tagged in, was like, yeah, you know what? It was a white guy that killed George Floyd. Yeah, you know what? I'm with you. Yeah. And then back in my mind, I'm thinking now the game that I love, my dad showed me how to play it for, is going to turn to a brawl. It's going to turn into a haymaker. And at the end of the day, being a Black coach, we're seen differently to my counterpart. I will be looked at as I can't control my kids. So we started having a conversation among us, the players and the coaches, and letting them air it out. And then I called my dad in Ohio and told him, like, you know what, I'm thinking about starting this organization, and just to get coaches to have this uncomfortable conversation, because On Twitter, we saw everybody's, shit, Duke, Coach K, I'm standing with my black athletes. Well, we've been here before. We've been here with Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice. We've been here before. You know what I'm saying? Back then, it was business as usual, right? Like, just get back to business. I saw the NBA putting Black Lives Matter on the floor. And, you know what I'm saying? I saw the jerseys and I saw the NFL. And what is, you know what I'm saying? What is that really doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to do it for about 3 months and it's going to die off. So I sent out probably like 600 emails to all the coaches that I knew, basketball coaches at first. And like, let's have that uncomfortable conversation. Like, let's see what you really doing for your black athlete or your Hispanic athlete, right? What conversations you having? Because if we can't have the conversation as coaches, how's the kids going to have the conversation? So we started it. It was not nice the first 6 sessions. People going at each other, white coaches getting off, and even black coaches that I knew was getting on like, Jeff, I don't want to get on no more because this is not our problem. And my dad told me it's going to be like that. I'm going to lose friends. But over the last year and a half, we've been meeting. We're trying to change the solution. We're trying to deal with not only the coaches, but the players, the fans, the admin. So we've been having different people come on to help find a solution because, you know what I'm saying, I didn't want my basketball game to turn into a brawl because, trust me, in San Diego, I'll be held accountable. I would have been like fired that day. And there's been different situations as I've occurred in San Diego with athletes. Khadijah wore a t-shirt that says Catholics versus convicts when they played us. So I guess our school was considered the convicts. There was a tortilla throwing situation that happened in Coronado. Pretty much a white school versus a Hispanic school. So there's been a lot of incidents where now everybody want to start having those conversations. And my comment was, we should have been having these conversations a long time ago.
No, I know your work, and I know what's happening down in San Diego. Like wherever we're at, right? These things go on. Like that's why I think it's so important, like that we're having conversations like this. Like I'll just throw it to the group, right? Like what does that bring up for you in your own personal experiences as sports-based youth development professionals, as community leaders?
I would say starting by checking our egos. All of us on this call are intelligent and we come with experiences and we know the kids need our experiences, but if our egos are in the way of those kids receiving that because we're trying to box out and protect whatever little space we got, then I think it ends up hurting the people we say we care about the most. And so I'm talking more so to me than I am talking about anybody else, right? Because it has to start here. But yeah, if we can remove the ego piece, then I think maybe we can be more collaborative.
Robert, I would say sharing information, like Urban Dove being shared for Jamoki and I to do the research on, I think is very important. And it's I could say in Oakland, one of the big challenges we have is the kids need to see people that look like them involved in their life. I think one of the big factors we miss is that a kid with parents like what we have on the phone are probably gonna be okay, you know what I mean? Because we're gonna make sure our kids are okay. But there's a whole lot of kids that don't have parent support that's out there in the community. And the research shows those are the kids we have to get to. And guess what? Their parents aren't gonna bring them to the team normally. Their parents aren't gonna sign them up for the team. We have to figure out how to go get them because that's a hard factor to deal with. You know, when we do our free camps, you know, of course the excited parents want to come out for an NBA-led camp, but the kids that need the most don't have parents to get them there. So that's what we have to figure out. And then we have to figure out what's being tough for us is people that have come from the neighborhoods and figured it out, how to get those people back, just to tell their experiences to the young people. Because kids are smart. They know when you're not from the community. You know, I mean, we have this in the schools, you know, with the percentage of teachers and stuff, but the lack of teachers of color. They know when you're not real. These kids are street smart. So they know when you're not real and you're not from the community. We got to get the people that came from the community involved so just their life experiences are there. Then we have to get to the kids that don't have the parents. There's kids that, you know, I work with kids that don't have no parent support. We got to be able to get to those kids too. And those are two big things. I think with shared information, we can figure out so we can really do some good work.
I love the checking the ego, Trennis, definitely without a shadow of a doubt. I love the idea of sharing information. As a nonprofit, we have decided to stay in a particular lane because the need is so great. I think doing one thing and doing one thing well is working for us right now because the need is so great. That's why collaborative is so good, you know. I know with ODAP right now, we are focusing in on trauma-informed care / violence prevention / sports has the opportunity and the wherewithal to heal trauma. So one of the things I think that we can learn from each other is how it's so important to weave in everything that we're doing, trauma-informed care. What I was telling Rob, you know, a lot of times with ODAP and the way we're moving with our coaches and our team, everything is laced with trauma-informed care. It's like that peel in the applesauce. They don't even know they're getting it. And I think in sports, which is a beautiful platform for so many things, especially prevention, we have to intentionally weave certain things through that. And I think trauma-informed care and finding a way to get it in there is very important for everything that we are doing. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why our kids do what they do. Sports is that big family, to your point, Sean, that they never had. You got a captive audience. They want to be there. How many places do young people want to be? They want to be there. There's so many things, and I live for the aha moments with my young men. If I'm talking to them about what makes them tick, and you know, nothing having to do with football, and they get it in their minds, the next time I know before they act, they're going to remember, oh, this is how I operate. This is what makes me do what I do. Let me chill. But they have that little tiny window that we really, really, you know, make a big deal about, that little tiny window before you do something you shouldn't do. And why would you want to do that?
And I want to say a couple of things before we go. One, I want to thank you all for being here. It's whatever solutions are on the horizon, right? They have to be community defined and community driven, right? Like our young people in Black and brown communities don't have the same access to sport as their more influent peers. That's not debatable, right? And it's arguable, right? Maybe even not even arguable that the quality of programs and services due to the systemic barriers that have been placed upon us have caused these situations and impacted the quality of access or quality of experience our young people have as well. So in order for us to shift these systems, it has to come from us. It has to be community driven. It can't come from outside of our communities, right? Like we can ask folks to be allies. We need allies in this space, but we have to be at the forefront of this movement. It can't be we're asking for a seat at the table. It's our table, right? These are our kids. It's our community. Like we have to be in this together. And I will say, Adrian put into the chat, the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, they just published a tremendous agenda, right? And they have tremendous resources that can help folks organize in this space. So as we're going locally, right, in communities like Philly, we're in Oakland, in Southeast San Diego, right? Like there are places that folks can go to get information on how to organize and do that work in an even more effective way. For those of us on this call, like we're going to have some follow-up conversations about how to move this forward, all right? Thanks everyone, I appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all.